Dr. Jazz.
You know, since
Dr.
I still I have the original CD of the Medicine Hat album. So that's since when I've been listening to your music. So I'm
great.
I love what you do, and you know, I'll just jump in to ask you about Pond Life because I was quite surprised by what you came up this time, and the way SNO, you know, Medeski and yeah, chess. You know, I know you worked with them, but like, how did the Chris and Tim Berne collaboration begin?
Well, I think of this record. The funny thing is, it's the same artist that did Medicine Hat, Henrik Drescher.
Really? Oh wow.
Did the art for this.
Oh wow. Okay. Quite cool.
And he was living in Brooklyn, and we became really good friends. And actually, we're living in his house. He moved to Portugal, and we got his house here in Brooklyn. So it's kind of funny how things cycle around. Well, I was thinking of the way I was thinking about this record is that basically it's a trio record with chess, and it's a follow-up of a record we did in 2004 called Directions to My House, which had Devin Hoff on bass. And originally I was going to have him on this as well, but he wasn't available, so we decided Chris. Chris I'd met playing with Stephen Bernstein's Millennial Territory Orchestra and the Butler Bernstein Project, which I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So I was just kind of a sub or like number 3 guitar player, I guess, in that Butler Bernstein. So I got to do some nice gigs with them. And Chris and I got along well, and he seemed like a good person to be third. And then I wanted to add some guests. So, you know, I've been playing with John Medeski a lot over the years, and I had him come and do kind of overdub on 2 sessions, the Freelance Subversives record, which was my previous record, and then and this one kind of on the same day. And Tim, I had been, is that me? Or? Tim was living in the neighborhood, and I'd see him around a lot and got to know him a little bit. And I wanted to have his voice on there, you know. So
It's kind of.
I think it came out great. I'm really happy with the record.
Man, it's beautiful. It sounds a little bit different. You know, it has this groove element that's always in your music, but it's also there's a lot of this openness and bizarre, quirky sounds more maybe than before. How did you envision the composing for this new album? I mean, it's a lot of stuff that I haven't heard before from you. You know, starting to investigate some other areas maybe, or.
Well, I mean, if you go back and listen to the Directions to My House record, it's fairly similar, I'd say, kind of to that. And I've been, you know, I went to music school and studied classical composition, and I was like a 20th century.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Like a 20th century composer, you know, at some point. And I was writing a lot of chamber music and
really, okay.
I took conducting class and, you know, did that whole music school thing. So I guess I'm trying to get back to that a little bit, you know, more in music.
Yeah. How did you write the music for this one? Like, I mean, in general, what's your process?
From the perspective of guitar, they're all kind of guitar pieces that I expanded, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
It's funny because I used to write everything on piano.
Oh, really? Interesting.
And then I decided if I wrote from standpoint of guitar, it would be kind of more guitaristic, right? It would work better. So I do mostly that way now. Well, I do also from piano too, but and I have like sketchbooks. When I'm in the writing mode, I'll just write every day, and I'll have like pieces. And sometimes they're not finished, and like I can't figure out how to finish them. And then I'll come back, So I really like this part, and then it needs this part, or this part could go here, That's for me kind of maybe the harder part is figuring out how to formalize it and make a structure out of it.
But the sketchbook is a good idea. The sketchbook is a good idea, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I been doing that. I have piles of them, and I go back and look like, what is this? Like, here's one from 2002. Like.
Oh man, that's fantastic.
Ideas.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. I love that.
So.
And you do it by hand? I saw.
I like. Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, fantastic.
So I mean, some of them are. That's blank. I ordered like a whole bunch of books. And
oh, that's so cool, man.
And so I always have one around if I need something.
Yeah, no, that's how do you get the initial idea? Just by practicing guitar, and then you find a riff or a phrase and you write it down, or do you like intentionally sit down and gonna compose something? Or...
Well, really both. A lot of times I'll sit down and practice, and then of course I'll get an idea like, oh, I want to write that down, or I've been, I have like tons of voice memos too, like ideas on the voice memo app. And sometimes it's easier just to go, instead of plow through all that stuff, just start something fresh and finish it, be a man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Do you have this fear of repeating yourself, or I mean, or you don't bother about that? I mean, I have sometimes that I write a phrase, and then I remember that I did something like that 4 years ago, or a riff, or whatever, because it's guitar oriented, or.
That's a good question. I mean, you can write. I think sometimes the idea about writing is you just want to not get in your head as much.
Yeah.
Like to be too critical, like you're like, God, this sucks, or this sounds too much like this, or and that's a problem I deal with, like I'm very critical, self-critical, so that's probably why I have a lot of unfinished things.
Yeah.
There's an interesting, Adam Levy, probably.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
During the pandemic, he started this a guitar writing project where we wrote a piece every week, and it was like a solo guitar piece to be played, not for other instruments, just for guitar.
Oh, okay.
And it was, I think I wrote about 15 pieces. I mean, there was maybe 10 guitarists or 15 guitarists involved, so we'd have a deadline. There was a prompt, like, okay, we're going to write a piece like inspired by Bill Evans or something.
Oh wow, that's a cool one.
So we all did whatever came to mind, and came up with a full piece at the end of the week, And I would usually write the night before, like, oh, I got to get this done, And then we'd have to record it and also have a sheet, piece of music.
Wow, so you basically have 15 solo guitar tracks recorded.
Yeah, I think at least, yeah.
Man.
And I've recorded a couple of them.
Wow. I mean, you haven't done a solo guitar record yet, right?
I haven't.
I think.
It would be fun to do, yeah.
Oh, man. That would be cool to hear.
Yeah. But just doing that for me was just having a deadline. That's the hardest part, right? I mean, getting yourself to finish things.
Yeah.
So I was like, this isn't that hard, and then you have, by the time Friday comes along, it's like whatever you have, that's it. You can't. There's no more revisions or anything.
Yeah.
And if I could get myself to do that in normal life, it'd be great.
How do you know when it's finished? I always have a problem with that. Like I keep adding things, or always questioning this or complicating or.
Well, I mean, like in this case, there's a deadline, so
that's different. Yeah.
So that's done. So, I mean, for me, like a lot of times, I'll write for a record and I'll have a recording date.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess a lot of times when have a finished composition, I'm gonna go record it. So once you record it, it's done.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it again.
Sure.
And revise it, but
also one
interesting.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Peter Apfelbaum, who I work with and have known for one of the guys I've known the longest in my life. I think is a great composer. And
oh man, yeah.
He recycles a lot of his ideas. He'll take it, just move things around, and then create a new piece.
Yeah.
Like he's not afraid to reuse his old ideas, and expand them.
You do that yourself, like with compositions, that you revise them, or like after a live gig you change things, or?
I haven't done that much.
Oh, really? Okay.
Except for the fact, except for what you were saying about how, maybe we repeat each other, ourselves. I mean, there's a certain amount of that you can't avoid, I don't think.
No, it's just like, maybe it's just me, when you listen to, I don't know, Wayne Shorter or Herbie, or whoever of these great guys, it's, I mean, sure, it's similar language, but yet, I would be cool to read about this, if someone asked Wayne that question, Wayne Shorter, let's say, it's the same language in a way, so it is in a way repeating, but I don't know, of course it's not, it's always something different. But whether he himself as a composer asks himself this question, or any of these guys, who are like writing so much, and
yeah, I've been going back and doing little gigs with people, and just playing those old Wayne tunes and stuff recently.
Ah, really? Oh man,
they're so great. And I feel like jazz, at least that period of jazz, or maybe also like with Tin Pan Alley kind of songs, like standards. Yeah. Like there's a lot of similarities, like in jazz. Let's go first with jazz standards, like 32 bar songs. There's a lot of similarities, but then there's one thing or a couple things that are different. Like they'll do this one modulation in the bridge, or they'll have this something that makes it kind of unique, that makes us as jazz people want to go play that song, because
some twist,
thing in there, right? Like, and I feel like maybe people like Wayne Shorter were thinking that way too, like Monk, for sure.
Oh,
like,
sure.
Right? It's like there's like it's like an etude almost, like
yeah.
What, like, I'm trying to think of an example, but like taking an old piece, like the contrafact idea, where you take an old standard and then change it.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And then they add, like, invent those new turnarounds or new ways from getting one chord to the other,
Yeah.
Well, I was playing Speak No Evil the other day.
Ooh, yeah.
The song Speak No Evil.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
Where the bridge goes like kind of minor thirds down a whole step.
It changes in this one, yeah. It's so beautiful, man. It's.
I mean, the A part is just one to flat two. It's like sort of modal song, but then
yeah.
The bridge that moves that way. So it gives you an idea you go from point to A to point B, and then there's different ways to get there,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah. So we play a song like that, you think, oh, how can I do that? And something like that,
Yeah. It's funny, like,
I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, what?
No, I wanted to say it's funny when you think about composition that, then on the other hand, you take a Paul Motion tune and it can be like this 7 bars of rubato melody and it also works, it's just bizarre. Or a Carla Bley, like it's those early stuff that she did, like it's a couple of notes and it works. I found that such a science or magic composition,
Yeah. Or yeah, like some Monk songs that are very short, like Light Blue or something.
Yeah.
But somehow you don't get bored. It gives you enough information to improvise over. That's I want to learn how to do that more.
But
write something that's.
Yeah, but things
that are very easy to play.
But you do that for yourself, like when you write a tune. I think Schofield once said that he writes sometimes ahead that it's gonna have like a cliche that he wants to avoid, so he puts it in the head so he will not play it in a solo, or he puts a heavy line in or something that he learned. So are these some of the approaches also you've tried, or?
I'm not sure what you mean.
Like, sometimes I spoke once to him and he said like, that in a head he would use like a phrase that he's really sick of because he kept on playing it. So he put it in the head and then in the solo, okay, we have to go somewhere else. So that was also a cool idea, I thought. I mean, like, how to do it. So.
Yes. So why would, if he was really sick of it, why would he put it in the melody? I guess he wasn't that sick of it.
No, but it was just like something in that term, or like I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Maybe
I think I know what you mean. Yeah.
But were these guys you mentioned, Monk now, and Wayne Shorter? I mean, there's one thing I also wanted to ask you. Like, it's your thing with organ. I think you played so much with organ players. So always when I think of organ, I'm thinking of I don't know, Wes, let's say, and Jimmy Smith, of course, and all, the Grant Green records and stuff. But like, what got you excited, like, for jazz guitar? Actually, I mean, I know you said you studied classical composition, but regarding jazz, was it like Monk and all these guys from the late '60s?
I got into jazz when I was in high school, coming from kind of rock and getting into jazz. So a lot of it was kind of fusion stuff I was listening to for a while,
So you played guitar basically already, like before? You did, right?
Yeah, and I started when I was about 10. So, and I was in bands and when I was about 13, and then Berkeley High where I went to high school, had a great jazz program, and Peter Apfelbaum and Stephen Bernstein were there, and they were kind of the stars when I was there, you know, like they were really into free jazz too. They were into Art Ensemble of Chicago and Cecil Taylor and all this stuff, you know, because they'd been partly, and they were going to create a music studio in Woodstock. And I was like sort of trying to catch up with them at that point, you know, and maybe I still am, but because I was like playing Allman Brothers and, you know, listening to Jeff Beck and Jimmy Page and all this.
I love that stuff, man. Yeah.
That was kind of my roots, you know, more or less on guitar. And so yeah, I sort of crammed. I practiced, got some good jazz teachers, and finally got in the jazz band in school with those guys as a senior, you know, in high school. So I was listening to every jazz guitar player I could at that time, you know. So a lot of Wes, a lot of Pat Martino, a lot of I really like Jimmy Rainey a lot. And,
oh yeah, wow, okay.
Jim Hall and all those guys, you know. Benson, but Wes really, I really got into him maybe more than any of those guys, just because he's the greatest.
Yeah, the phrasing, man, and everything. Yeah, it's
just everything about him is so great. But then I also like people like Alan Holdsworth, where, you know, I went to see him with the Tony Williams Lifetime, you know.
Really? Oh shit, man! Wow, how was that? That was loud, right?
Yeah. So that we were like, as a high school student, there was a club in San Francisco called the Keystone Corner. Todd Barkin used to run it, and we could go there as teenagers. They didn't have a problem letting us in, so I went to a lot of jazz shows there, you know. And another club, the Great American Music Hall, opened up in San Francisco that had jazz at that time too. So I got to see a lot of the greats. You know, this was in the 70s.
Yeah, definitely. How's Holdsworth like, by the way? I mean, he's one of my heroes.
And Weather Report. You know, I got to see all those guys.
Did you see Miles? Like in the 70s?
Yeah, I saw Miles.
Oh, wow. Okay, nice.
But this later, I didn't. Yeah, I got to see him with Schofield and Mike Stern, that Star Power record.
Yeah.
It was pretty incredible.
Oh.
So all that stuff. But then I got into classical music. I was listening to a lot of Frank Zappa too. Frank was a gateway guy for me. Like, I was like, who's this Edgar Varese guy, you know, and Stockhausen, and what is all this stuff, you know? So I would follow that up on that, and I really got into all that stuff, you know.
Oh, interesting.
I went to school and had composition teachers and was listening to a lot of Stravinsky and anyway. So then, you know, it took me, I sort of got out of jazz guitar for a while, and that took me a while to get back in it.
Interesting. Yeah.
But then like, I don't know if you want to hear my whole history, but
oh yeah, man, please, yeah, that's why, yeah, just please, yeah, I'm really, that's why I'm asking. I mean, you know, you have a
so Peter Apfelbaum had this group called the Hieroglyphics Ensemble, which he
started
when he was 18 years old. I had already graduated. It was like the year after I graduated, they started that group. And then I ended up joining later in the mid-'80s. So that was part of me getting back into jazz, I guess. And then they had a couple of managers, Lee Townsend and Hans Wendell, who had moved to Berkeley, and they had worked at ECM before together. So they were working with Bill Frisell and producing all these different records. And so, and they were working with the Hieroglyphics Ensemble, and Hans helped Peter get record deals. And Don Cherry came and was working with us for a while.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that Multiculti project. How did that happen, actually, with Don?
Well, that was a smaller project that came out of the Hieroglyphics Ensemble. Don Cherry came to the Bay Area and to do a concert. Like, Peter got a grant to hire somebody, to be a soloist. And Don came to the Bay Area, and he fell in love with the Bay Area and stayed there for a few years, And he performed with us. And if I go back, I wasn't really playing a lot of jazz. I didn't think of myself as a jazz guy at that point. I was trying to be more of a rock guy at that, or whatever. I don't know. Now, if I could go back, I would have been hanging out with him as much as I could, just try to play. But it was great, he was around, and we got to know him, his personality and his. We had a lot of positivity and just like openness,
Yeah.
And we went to Europe with him one time.
Oh, really?
To play the Leverkusen festival.
Wow. Was that the first time for you in Europe?
It was the first time playing. I'd
been
visited before.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Well, yeah, I had spent 87. I went there. I had a French girlfriend, and we lived in Paris for a while.
Okay, that was cool.
And I had traveled there in the early 80s with my dad and did like a trip. But anyway, so Lee Townsend and Hans were around, and they were kind of doing projects in the Bay Area, and I kept giving Lee Townsend demo tapes, here's my new demo tape, and because he wanted to work with me. And I gave him this band that I had called James T. Kirk.
Oh, okay. But this was already with Charlie? No.
Yeah, with Charlie, yeah.
Okay, so this already the early version, okay.
So this was, I'm skipping ahead a few years, from when we started doing Hieroglyphics records. And
yeah.
So, yeah, Charlie had just got this big following, like a little cult following in the Bay Area, like a regular weekly gig, and there's always lines to get in.
Wow.
And we became friends, and so it was actually his idea to do this project. James T. Kirk, is like from Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
James Brown, Thelonious Monk, Roxanne Roland Kirk. So we did it. We started playing gigs, and we made a little demo, and I took it to Lee. And it was the same time everybody wanted Charlie. Like, all the labels were trying to get Charlie on. And Warner Brothers was interested.
Yeah.
And Blue Note was interested, so he went with Blue Note, and then Warner Brothers was, we'll take this side project, So Lee was able to shop it with Matt Pearson, who was doing stuff like Brad Meldau and
Joshua Redman, I think, and these guys.
All those guys at that time, So that's just kind of the story of that, and then
Was that a big thing? I mean, like, that you guys landed with TJ Kirk, the Warner Bros. I mean, did you start gigging a lot?
It was a huge thing. You know?
Yeah, I mean, because you became quite big, right? I mean, I talked with Scott Amendola, and he said like you guys were like, it was like, I mean, also because of Charlie, but because of the band, that a huge following was created on the West Coast. Like
yeah, we had a big following, and we did some touring, you know, around the country. But Charlie was concentrating on his own thing, so he didn't want to do. He wanted to do limited amounts of touring.
Okay.
But you know, our tours went pretty well, and people love that group, you know.
Yeah, sure.
And but then, you know, it kind of I guess it ended maybe when Charlie moved to the East Coast. I can't remember. Yeah, we sort of stopped it around, can't remember what year, but and then I also got, because of that, I got signed to Verve Antilles to do Medicine Hat. It was kind of through that little chain of.
How did that happen, actually, the Medicine Hat album? Like, how did you decide to become, you know, to make your debut as a band leader? Like, what's the story behind there?
Well, it was again Lee Townsend who was who got me that gig, and I had just I hadn't really been leading my own band. I've been doing it a little bit, and then I decided to try it. That was what I needed to do at that point, you know. So.
Did it feel comfortable for you?
I've been working with Scott, you know, with TJ Kirk, so we had a rapport. And then the bass player John Shifflett was in this group we had with Peter, the Peter Apfelbaum Sextet, which is, I don't know if you ever heard that record. But
no, I have to check it out. Wow. Okay.
Records. It's hard to find. It's on what label is it?
I have to write this down.
A Gramavision.
Okay.
Remember Gramavision?
Yeah, sure. Like, I love those records. Like,
yeah.
I'll write it down.
It was Medeski Martin Wood was also on Gramavision, the early records, and Hans Wendel, who
super.
We were working with. He was like became the president of Gramavision or some manager or something at some time, and he moved to the East Coast, and I guess that was around that. Either around that time, but that's one of those records that fell through the cracks. But
I really have to find it.
One of the great records, one of my favorite ones I've done. You know.
Yeah.
I keep trying to get Peter like, come on, let's do the sextet again.
Are you still in touch with Peter? By the way, I mean, like, do you guys still play or?
Yeah, he lives in Brooklyn too, so we. And he's reviving the hieroglyphics ensemble now.
Oh, wow.
He started the New York one. When he moved to New York, he started the New York hieroglyphics, which was all New York players, and I wasn't in it anymore. You know, it was a lot of New York guys. So that's the official one, but he's kind of working me into it again. We just played at New Blue about a month ago. But Peter and I have been working with Bill Laswell.
Really?
Yeah.
What was that? What kind of a project?
Well, we let's see. I don't know how this. Oh yeah, we did Peter had a residency at the Stone, and he had one night with Bill Laswell, which was like a trio, and he said, "Why don't you come in and play a little?" You know, so I came in to a rehearsal, to a sound check, and Bill told Peter, "Why don't you just get Will to play on the whole gig?" You know, I was only going to play on one or two songs, and then it was like really great. And so we started this band called Revelator.
Oh, okay.
And we're still working on trying to finish it. We made a record. We're still trying to finish it. There's been some setbacks. Our drummer had some health problems, and But anyway, Bill, now it seems like he's taken a liking to me. So we just did a session a couple of weeks ago with a Japanese flute player and a Japanese saxophone player and Adam Rudolph on percussion.
Yeah. Oh, really? Oh, wow. That must be interesting. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was super fun. I was like, yeah, this is what I want to do with Bill. Finally, after all these years. Just completely improvised.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting.
And then I had Bill remix a couple of my songs that I try to put out at some point. And
Fantastic.
We've been doing other sessions there. So that's one of the things I do with Peter, because he's been getting Peter to play on a lot of his releases. I don't know.
Yeah.
They did one with it was a Tony Williams' last recording. It was with Bill Laswell, and a lot of it was just duo, the two of them playing.
Ah, to find it. Okay.
So Peter, so he overdubbed Peter on it.
Wow.
So like Peter's in a trio with Tony Williams and Bill Laswell.
And this is out? It's a record, I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I have to find this.
Bandcamp and look at Bill Laswell's.
Okay.
Bandcamp, he's releasing everything there.
Oh, wow, okay.
This one is called Arcana.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait a second. But he did a lot of those, right? Oh, no, that was a different band. That was like Derek Bailey, I think, Arcana. Also.
I think it's called Arcana.
Okay, I'll try to find it. I know Derek Bailey had like something Arcana, but I don't know what it was.
Maybe it is.
But it was Bill Laswell with Derek Bailey and Tony Williams. Exactly. That was it. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You have to find this one.
Wow.
It's bizarre.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, you really have to hear that. It's Tony Williams, Bill Laswell, and Derek Bailey. It's like, what?
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's but I'll try to find this one with Peter. I mean, fantastic. Okay, I didn't know this existed. I wanted to ask you, when did you move to the East Coast, and how did that happen actually? What was the main?
2007.
Oh, already. Okay.
So I'd been wanting to do it for almost decades, I guess. So I'm really attracted to the music out here, and there's a lot of friends out here. A lot of my friends moved from the Bay Area here too,
Yeah.
And actually, my girlfriend, is a violinist, Ellen. She had lived out here and studied at Juilliard and Manhattan School, and she was like, "Let's go," She kind of nudged me, so we just packed up the car and moved out here.
Was it heavy for you, like the transition? I mean, or getting gigs, and what were the first kind of things you established, like?
Well, it's funny because back then, I had maybe more going on then than I do now in a way. I just signed to Palmetto Records.
Oh yeah, exactly.
And I was touring a lot with Stanton Moore and touring a lot with different people. So when I moved here, I had a lot of connections and things happen a lot, when I first moved here.
Yeah.
I got to go, I had a record deal. I would go down to my record label, Palmetto, who also had Lonnie Smith was another guy they had on there. And,
that's a great label. Yeah. I love it. Frank Kimbrough and all these guys. I mean, it's such a nice label.
Yeah, they're kind of not doing much now. I don't.
Yeah, no, yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
So yeah, it was, there was a lot going on right away.
Mm.
And my record, my first Palmetto record got nominated for a Grammy, like that year or the same year I moved here or a little after, so.
Yeah, that helps, right? Kind of.
And then, I was talking to my friend George Schuler. I was like, I don't seem to have a problem getting gigs. And he was like, well, just wait. It's like a real up and down. It's very competitive in New York,
Do you find it heavier now? Like, I mean, it's kind of this post-COVID period still, I guess, but if you compare it to 15 years ago, getting gig-wise, I mean...
it's harder, I think, now, yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I mean, you have these clubs that close, like the Jazz Standard and the 55 Bar.
55,
and, little clubs, Cornelia Street, and there's a lot of new little places, though. So I think, there's so many musicians here. Like the Bitter End, I just played there the other night. And that's become more of a place that jazz musicians play and different kinds of music.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are playing for tips and,
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, like it's crazy.
Tim Berne, I was asking him, well, do you have any Europe connection? And I'm trying to figure out how I can get this out to Europe. And he was like really frustrated. And he's like, I'm just playing in Brooklyn for tips these days.
Yeah, I know he can get dark. He can get dark, man. Yeah. It's true, man. It's like I spoke the other day with a friend of mine, a saxophone player, and we were like, Tim Berne, we did a tour like 15 years ago and a record together, and he's one of my heroes. I transcribed melodies, and he did it like on his own since the late 70s and influenced so many of us. And he has problems getting a tour in Europe together. I mean, it's such a wrong world. And we talked about the awards, like all these Genius, MacArthur, whatever awards, and like, I mean, he should be there. If you ask me and many other guys, like it's bizarre how this jazz business functions or non-functions. Actually, I'll put it like that. It's
so I don't know. Yeah, I think COVID really changed a lot of things.
Yeah,
it feels different after COVID. For some reason.
No, in Europe also, I think we did now like a almost 3-week European tour in October, and all the promoters said like it's getting back there, but still it's like we're up to 60% of where it used to be. So so let's see, maybe 2023 will be better, I hope. But
there's other factors too, obviously, like the war.
Oh man, it's I know it's bizarre, yeah. But otherwise,
that must be affecting you guys. You're closer to that thing than.
Yeah, I mean, we got a lot of refugees over in the past, and the heating costs went up like crazy in Europe, especially. It's just like we pay more than double or triple now for the heating, which is that's a lot. It's even the promoters say, like Porgy Bess in Vienna, right? And the promoter Christoph, he said like, yeah, our maintenance costs doubled, which is like crazy, So even for clubs, it's a hard time. So it's bizarre period, I think. But we'll. But you will drop me a line then afterwards. I mean, if you have something together, I already told you some contacts I have. Maybe I could help you out for some gigs.
Oh, that'd be great.
So I'll give you some names. But
yeah, I'm coming over in February to play with John Medeski in Paris at a festival, the Son d'Hiver festival.
okay, yeah. Oh, wow, beautiful, beautiful.
So I'm just gonna hang out for a couple weeks.
Oh, okay, wow, come on. Oh, you should come to Slovenia, man. Yeah, come on, let's play.
I think I told you my cousin moved to Maribor, or not to Maribor, to Ljubljana, I guess.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
And her daughter moved there first, and then she moved to be with her daughter.
Yeah.
So at some point I'll make that a part of my.
Oh, sure. Come. We have we have a guest room, so come over.
Oh, you do, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I just, I emailed David Braun too.
Yeah.
And he was happy to reconnect, so that was nice.
Yeah, I hope he would be one of the guys I would send you the email to. So, but you played here already, like 2000, I think 7 or 6. So
maybe later.
Later.
Yeah, there was
2011. 11. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a period where I was booking my own tours in Europe and having some success.
Do you still do that?
Like
on your own
festival, and then yeah, I was doing it on my own, and I'm trying to do it again, but it seems to be a lot harder now.
It is, yeah, it is.
So anyway,
but we'll see.
Europe isn't that far away. It's like almost the same as going to San Francisco. So
yeah, definitely, exactly. Exactly. But
I'll be coming back for sure.
Yeah, Will, I wanted to ask you also about these albums that you did, like just like Downtown and Out and About, all these ensembles. How did you gather the ensembles together? When you think of a band, I know John Ellis and Brian Charette were the mainstay in that one period. But like, how do you get groups together? How do you envision that as a band leader?
Well, those records were done with a label called Positone.
Yeah.
And they like to be very hands-on in deciding
okay.
who's on the record,
Oh, really? Okay.
And they kind of have it's like an ensemble cast in a theater production or something. They're like...
It's kind of like a crisscross thing in the past, right?
Yeah. Like, so he'd like to use Rudy Royston a lot, and Brian Charette was on a bunch of Positone records. And, John might have been my idea, John Ellis, because I always loved his playing,
Yeah, he's amazing. Yeah.
So like the second record, I don't know how we came up with Allison Miller. I've been playing with her a little bit, and I guess, I don't know. And then Ben Allison, he also does that, works with Stephen Bernstein's MTO and stuff like that. So we had a relationship with them.
Yeah. I like those records. I mean, they're nice groups, nice music.
And then the last one with Sam Yahel.
Yeah.
And I'm spacing on the drummer. Sam Yahel was Mark Free's suggestion, the Positone. I didn't know him before. I knew his work, but he's a brilliant musician.
What's with you and the organ, actually?
I don't know. Yeah, what's you?
Yeah, it's like facing you directly. Like, what's wrong, man?
I'm trying to get away from it. I want to do more. I'm working on more trio stuff. But I think for me, the organ, like playing, like when we did the Stanton Moore records, right? It's like we can play a rock club and play funk, and people dance, and organ can really supply a lot of the stuff you need for that, and it's you know, a 3-piece. You get a big sound. It's harder to do that as a trio, like a electric guitar trio with bass.
Bass, yeah.
Because maybe the percussive part of it, I don't know. What was I going to say? So yeah, I mean, it sort of fit into that sort of jam band world.
TJ Kirk was kind of like that almost, right? In a way.
I mean, it's funny because when we started that group, it was like in the time period where acid jazz was the term people use for whatever hole they were trying to stuff us in, you know, or we were trying to go in, but we didn't fit quite, you know, we're like too weird.
Yeah.
We were our own thing, kind of, you know. But it's like at that same point, like Stanton Moore was playing with Galactic, and
oh yeah, exactly.
Robert Walter was in the Grey Boy All Stars, and Medeski Martin Wood, and Charlie Hunter had his thing. It was all like funk bass, and they could tour all over and play a rock club or a jazz club, or a festival, you know. So it's kind of a good formula to play a lot of gigs. And, instead of playing some obscure, like, you know, like jazz, listening jazz, harder to book maybe a tour, you know.
Oh yeah,
and get people to come out. I mean, that's the business end of it, I guess.
That's the reality.
We all love funk. I mean, at that point I was listening to tons of hip hop and funk and all this stuff. And I didn't really know a lot about that whole organ repertoire and the whole Blue Note. I liked it, but I didn't know a lot about it at that point, you know. I was somehow in my mind I was like listening to Bill Frisell and David Torn and then also listening to David Bowie and Prince and hip hop, and I wasn't sure how to put all these things together. You know, I was trying to put them together, and I was like, well, I should be in New York because nobody's doing that here, you know. But then, no. So that's kind of where I was coming from, and then, but these guys were digging, you know, listening to the stuff that the DJs in the hip hop groups were listening to do loops, right?
Yeah.
And that's how it kind of came out, like crate digging and finding old Grant Green records and all these obscure funk records and stuff. Like that's where like people like Robert Walter were coming from, you know.
Yeah.
So I kind of learned from playing with those guys. I learned a lot. I mean, it was like doing Grant Green songs and all this stuff, you know, organ staple.
Yeah, fantastic, that stuff. Yeah,
soul jazz staples, things like this, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like my musical.
Sorry, no, yeah.
Part of it is like just like this. Well, that's interesting, or somebody hires me for a gig, so I kind of move this way, you know. It's not like I'm calculating, like I'm going to do this and this.
Yeah, that's why I like Pond Life. You know, it's such a nice direction. If you go, and you said you did like a improvised record with Bill and Adam Rudolph. You know, and also with Tim, he gives you such a nice color, you know, like it's like an amazing you're cooking and you suddenly throw in, I don't know, cinnamon and something like what?
What?
Like, I don't know, cinnamon or cloves in a dish that should not have that, and it works, you know. And it's like it's nice to hear you also exploring this vibe. It's so cool, you know.
It's funny because I feel like like for instance, Medicine Hat.
Mm-hmm.
I think like the record label wanted me to do one thing, but then I wanted to do another thing, which was the other thing was to be me and do like bring in all my influences. So that record came out the same time as Schofield's A Go-Go.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 98. Yeah,
had
sure.
a cassette with 2 songs from my record and 2 songs from theirs. Mine was pretty weird compared to A Go-Go, like in terms of I think they went, that record was huge, A Go-Go, and
oh man, yeah,
like, just we're gonna do a funk record, and you know what you're gonna get from beginning to end. Is like, and I was trying to do that sort of that way, but I wanted to do. I mean, I had done another record more or less like that, but I wanted this one to be more a variety of styles.
Yeah.
But they didn't really know how to market that, I think,
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, it's such a nice record, like the Prankster and that Boomtown. I don't know the tunes anymore, but like such cool stuff, You put it on, and I was like, man, it's a really good record. I mean, it's.
Oh, thank you.
Still now, if you put it on, it's
like that. I can't remember. Oh, there was one called like "Do Not Bend." I think it was like kind of pretty out there, compared to everything else.
Yeah.
It's funny, interesting that Scott and we've sort of started playing a lot more. Scott Amendola and I and John Schott too.
Yeah.
Who was in TJ Kirk, and we started a band called Damn Skippy, which was a working title for our second TJ Kirk record. Skippy for the monk tune, and then
so if 4 was 1, yeah. So okay, yeah.
And then the Damn, it was kind of like Damn Right I'm Somebody, the Fred Wesley song that we did. So now we have a band called Damn Skippy. We're going to record next year.
Wow, fantastic.
And it's me, Scott, John, and then Todd Sikafus on bass, and then
beautiful.
Jenny Scheinman on violin.
Oh man, that's incredible.
So that's the Damn. So we're doing a little tour. So yeah, it's kind of going back and playing. And then we have like we did a little trio thing, John Schott and Scott and I, and it was called That Damn Trio. The last time I was there, it was really fun. So
yeah, but nice that you'll play with Scott. I mean, that on a record, I love your hookup with Scott. He's one of my favorite drummers. He's so good, so creative, and will be nice to hear that. Looking forward.
So we have this funny chemistry with me and John. Well, with Charlie too, there was like this crazy chemistry with that group. Like, and John and Scott and I still have that. Just like, it's pretty. I don't know how to describe it, but
yeah,
it goes. It's pretty intense, like when we play. And
what about TJ Kirk? Did you guys ever?
A lot of old jokes from 30 years ago,
yeah.
Or 25 years ago, So yeah, it's fun.
Did you guys ever think about TJ Kirk, like doing it again, or is Charlie in a two different worlds now, kind of, or?
We talk about it. It might happen at some point. We did a little TJ Kirk reunion right before it was December 2021, and it's funny because I got COVID like the next day, and it was like we all went to lunch and everything. I was like, "Hey guys, I got COVID." And none of them got it though. It was great. But I was sick for about 10 days.
Oh, shit, yeah.
But we did a concert and just invited our friends only.
How was that like? Playing again with that group?
It was really fun.
Fun, right? Yeah. Beautiful.
A lot of fun. there's maybe 20 people there, you know.
Oh, wow.
I think there's a video.
Oh, okay. I have to check it out. Okay. Oh.
It's just we haven't put it online yet, but yeah, it was all a lot of friends that had been friends with the group back in the original days, you know.
Yeah. Oh, wow, cool. Would be nice to see you guys 30 years later with all your different influences, you know, and it's always cool because it's like, you know, you formed into different personalities and musicians, yet still then you bring this to a group which existed. That must be a cool thing, actually. So
yeah, I think, you know, the one thing I think I like to think I'm better now, you know. I don't know if I am, but I don't know if I'm technically better, because I listen to my younger self and I'm like flying all over the place, and I don't play the same way now, you know.
well, that's good, I guess. Yeah.
But I'm more knowledgeable now, I think. Well, I mean, I know I am, but and I feel like I'm making my records are better now. Like I feel like Pond Life is like, yeah, I really got what I wanted out of that, and you know.
Yeah.
You know, you set a goal, and then like sometimes you don't, well, kind of halfway met it, you know, and I wish I'd done this or that.
Yeah, that's a strong record, yeah.
I just feel more able to realize what I kind of set out to do now, you know. I don't know, does that feel like how?
Yeah, I think
that feeling.
Yeah, I think you mature. At least I hope you do. But
yeah,
you know, yeah. I mean, also when I listen back, I played so fast some of the stuff, and sometimes I'm like, man, I shouldn't have done that. I should have, you know, or like.
I mean, on your early stuff, I mean.
Yeah. You know, I mean, I like some of the stuff, but it sounds so. It sounds good. I guess that's who you are. It's okay. But yeah, I think you hope that you mature through time.
Yeah. Well, I think when you get older, physically maybe you can't play quite as fast as you used to be able to either, you know.
Yeah. It's like I listened to the other day to this. Yeah, I listened to the other day to this record by Scofield, Shinola. You know that one? Like 81.
I haven't heard it in a long time.
Man, and he's like, you know, like incredible. And then I heard like last year what he did, like in trio with Swallow and Stewart, and I mean, of course, the lines are incredible, but it's just not so much flurry going on, and it's interesting to hear that, like this development of a musician. It's quite cool.
Yeah, I went to hear him at the Blue Note with Dave Holland a month or so ago.
Oh, the duo thing.
And I was thinking about that. Sorry?
The duo thing.
Yeah, duo.
Oh yeah, beautiful.
And also heard him with a group with John Coward.
Yeah.
And have you heard that project?
Yeah, it's incredible, right? I mean, John is amazing. I love his playing.
Yeah. But yeah, I was thinking about Sko, that he's not really trying to play all that fast stuff anymore, but he still doesn't matter, you know. It's like,
no.
I mean, it's so musical what he does. And I saw Bill Frisell twice actually in the last couple of weeks.
Oh, which one?
The Blue Note. Well, he had a week there, so he was doing different things. But he did it was a quintet with double bass and double drums with Kenny Wallison and Rudy Royston out here, and then Tony Shear and Thomas Morgan both playing bass, and then he was in the middle. Yeah, it was wonderful, of course. And then I went back the next night to hear him just play solo, which I never had seen him play solo before.
No, me neither. How was that like? That's incredible, right?
Yeah, it was mind-blowing.
Yeah,
he didn't stop. He just started, didn't say anything, just played for a whole set, just no stopping.
Wow.
And he played a bunch of tunes, he played couple monk tunes, and
wow.
He would just sort of segue with improvisation and then bring in another song and sort of do whatever came to his head, I guess,
Yeah, man, he's one of my heroes, really. It's pretty
so when you go see people like that, for me, like, the first thing that comes to mind is the incredible focus, like to be able to do something like that,
Yeah.
And I never hear him play a wrong note ever. I mean, it's like, or even lose attention. Like he may lose it. He might sort of wander a little bit, but still sounds good,
Yeah, he's such a monster. It's like it came to my. I listened to his playing, all the time. It's funny. Like he would play a G major chord, and it would sound incredible. And then you play the same chord at home, and it's just like a G major chord. I don't know. It's bizarre, but yeah. But cool. I just wanted, to ask you also, like, what's coming up in the following weeks and months, and you said you're going to Europe with John Medeski and some new records coming out slowly. Like, what are the plans for you for the future?
Yeah, so I'm also finishing up a duo record with a clarinetist, Beth Custer, from the Bay Area.
Oh, okay.
I've been working with for decades, and it's all mastered. We're like just trying to do the artwork, and it's funny because our good friend Lucia is doing the artwork, and she's living in Croatia now.
Really? Oh, wow. My neighbor.
She has a Croatian descent, but she was a Bay Area person, that we all knew. So she's doing our artwork from Croatia.
That's cool.
And Beth and I go way back, and she always played in this group called Clubfoot Orchestra. Have you ever heard of them?
No.
There's a Bay Area, really great group in the Bay Area, and they did silent movie soundtracks. And they started in the 80s. And I was always a big fan. I would go to their concerts. And then they started hiring me to play. Like before the pandemic, I did a few shows with them. I did their 35th anniversary show. And we did about 6 hours of music with like all these movies,
Oh, wow. Like improvised or?
No, it was mostly written.
Written. Oh, wow. Okay.
This guy, Richard Marriott, was kind of the leader. And it's, I know, I feel like it's sort of rooted, like it's similar to some of the things like John Lurie and Evan Lurie and stuff was going on in New York in the 80s, like sort of punk rock, but more expanded, like a lot of Nina Rota kind of stuff, and like soundtrack stuff mixed with electric guitars and
nice. Okay.
It's really fun music. You can do like Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. Metropolis, and I think they were one of the first bands to do that. Really,
I have to check it out.
So yeah, I got to do that, and that's kind of how I know Beth at first. Is I guess what I was talking about. So there were like some certain groups in the 80s in the Bay Area. There's a few like large ensemble groups like the Hieroglyphics Ensemble and Clubfoot, which is basically around a 10-piece group, and John Zhang's Asian Orchestra, Pan Asian Orchestra, and I always admire that, you know, that kind of thing, you know, like related to Carla Bley and
Yeah.
things like that, you know. Especially being coming out of composition, being a composition student and going to see them with all their, you know, it's like an orchestra pit, you know, and they all have their little lights on their stands and their conductor, but they're playing this weird music, you know. It's like so fun, you know.
Did you ever have an idea to do like a large group?
I would love to, yeah. Maybe, you know, I was in a group called the Bay Area Jazz Composers Orchestra for a while, and it was similar to the New York. There was a New York Jazz Composers.
Jazz Composers, yeah.
Allison
was
involved with. So I wrote some stuff for that. It was pretty exciting to hear, but so much work, you know.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Especially back then, writing all the parts, and now you can do it computer. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I would love to try that again. But one of the things I've been working on is studying Indian guitar playing.
Really? Wow.
I'm studying with Debashish Bhattacharya in Calcutta.
Wow.
You should look him up. He's incredible. So yeah, I've been doing like lap steel with like I got a
wow, man.
You know, Weissenborn copy. And I'm like playing, you know.
Nice.
You know.
Wow, that's cool. Okay.
That's kind of like I've always loved. Well, in the early '90s, I got into Indian music with playing with Jai Uttal, who's part of the Hieroglyphics Ensemble. We started a separate group called the Pagan Love Orchestra, and he was kind of my best friend at that time, and he turned me on to all this Indian music, and we went to study at Ali Akbar College.
Yeah.
Ali Akbar Khan was teaching all levels. So
wow, seriously. Wow.
Classes with Ali Akbar Khan, you know.
Wow.
And then I was always into it, but I kind of stopped. I think around the time this like T.J. Kirk and all that stuff took my time, you know.
Yeah, sure.
But even on that, I was playing slide guitar on some of those records. So I decided I just became friends with Debashish online on Facebook and realized he was teaching. So I was like, I'd love to take some lessons. And now we're like great friends. And
that's fantastic.
Really, I think he's one of the best guitar players in the world. Really.
Check him out. Okay.
I'll send you some links.
Please, yeah. I don't know.
And so we do Zoom guitar classes.
Yeah, sure.
And I do it. I like to do it more. I just get my own other stuff, you know, gets in the way. But it's funny, like, and then I meet somebody like Adam Rudolph, who's like this mind-blowing visionary guy, you know.
Yeah. Incredible.
So, and then like, you know who Hassan Hakmoon is? No. He's a Ganawan Sintir player.
No, I have to write these names down. But no.
Hakmoon, it's Hakmoun. Hassan Hakmoon.
Cool.
So he and Adam Rudolph did this record called Gift of Ganawa years ago, maybe even the 90s. And Hassan Hakmoon got involved with Peter Gabriel and the Real World.
Oh yeah, okay, that project, yeah.
All that thing, and he had but it turns out, like, we just moved like this summer, and it turns out he lives a block away from me.
Oh wow, that's quite cool.
We're friends now, and then a month later I meet Adam Rudolph, which just really weird. So to me, like these kind of things make me think, wow, I guess I should take advantage of these connections.
Yeah.
So I listened to this Adam Rudolph record the other day called Ragmala. Have you heard of that one?
No, I mean I have a couple of his this larger orchestras, the organic orchestra.
Yeah,
I have.
It's called the Go Organic Orchestra.
Yeah. I have a couple of those. Yeah.
So this was a recent one he did a few years ago, and it has like this group called Raga Massive that's in New York. It's sort of an expansive Indian collaboration, and then he also had the Moroccan Ganao, and he had mixed the two together.
Yeah. That's
plus with his other West African percussion roots, and it's like
that's incredible. Yeah.
Okay, I guess something's happening here. I don't know how I'm fitting into all this. Like with Laswell has been doing that for centuries, decades, mixing these kind of things together.
Yeah.
So I guess that's one of the things I'm gonna explore, more.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, we're gonna be thrown out again, so I think we should.
Hassan had a group called Zahar. Which you can check out. It's guitar, drums, and Centurion.
Okay.